They can't break me down. They can't break me
This is
down.
Sweet Radio SVG. Welcome to another edition of Life No Sugar Added. This is the program where we look at life and all of its warts and imperfections through the eyes of Caribbean people. And we have so far looked at issues such as domestic violence. We've looked at child abuse. We have looked at LGBTQI issues. We've looked at substance abuse, and we've looked at invisible illnesses. My guest this evening is Cheryl Adams. Cheryl Adams is blind, and Cheryl, having heard one of our programs, thought this is a wonderful place for me to do some advocacy. And so she actually volunteered to be on Life No Sugar Added. Cheryl, thank you for being here. Welcome to Sweet Radio SVG and to Life No Sugar Added.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening.
Thank you. Cheryl is an advocate for the disabled. She is also the founder and manager of the organization Voice of the Disabled. They recently celebrated their 8th anniversary, or 6th anniversary, Cheryl.
6th anniversary.
You were founded in 2016.
2016.
And I found out also that Cheryl and I go way back. I didn't know that until we first spoke, but Cheryl apparently has known me since my days at another radio station in another lifetime. Right?
Yes.
Cheryl, tell me about the Voice of the Disabled.
Oh, Voice of the Disabled is an organization that was founded in 2016, the 22nd of October, by yours truly. And this organization is another organization added to the few organizations that are here in St.Vincent representing persons with disability. But in 2016, at the time, there are persons with disability who felt that they had no voice and they are not being represented enough at all. And they contacted me and asked if I can do something, start up something. Now they have been asking me even long before 2016, but I figure we have organization already, and it didn't make any sense going that way. But one day I heard a voice asking, why not advocate on behalf of persons with disability? And then I decided, I would. So I called few of my differently able brothers and sisters and parents of students, children that have special needs. And we met at the Conley Resource Center and we had a meeting and the Voice of the Disabled was born.
Congratulations and thank you for your involvement. We'll talk a bit more about Voice of the Disabled a little later on in the program, but let's talk about you. When did you go blind?
Well, I was told that I went blind at the age of 2. And every time I talk about this, I get kind of emotional because, no one seemed to be able to say to me, what is the cause of my blindness? I know, we have many medical conditions that can cause, children to go blind, but no one were able to say, well, this is the condition of, your reason for being blind. So at 2, I grew up all my life being blind, but still have no reason at all why.
That's why. Are you partially blind or totally blind?
Totally blind.
Well, Cheryl, where did you get your education?
Well, Cleo, my education, I would say come from experience first. And as a child, I went to the Louis Punnett home because I grew up with my aunt. My father was lackadaisical. My mother went to Trinidad. And so I end up at Louis Punnett home, and a very nice group at that time, active, advocating for children in SVG, was the St.Vincent JCs. They came there, they found me and sent me off to school in Trinidad for the blind. So there is where I got my primary and vocational education.
How old were you when you left?
I was 12 years old.
And what sort of stuff did you do?
Well, at Santa Cruz, we learned to teach, oh, excuse me, we learned to read and write Braille. We did maths, language, you know, what different primary school would do. And because I would have gone in that late, again, I lost the opportunity of doing that time what they would have called comprehensions or C's in Trinidad and school leaving. So my teacher asked me what I wanted to become. And I always like to talk. So I always wanted to be someone working in an office, talking on the phone, communicating. So I was sent at this college called the Comprehensive Business Training in Trinidad, Woodbrook. There I learned to type and, you know, communicate on the phone, etc.
Well done. That's impressive, Cheryl, honestly.
Yeah.
What was life like as a child with a disability?
Life as a child with a disability can be very difficult. My childhood was a struggled one. And even though growing up blind, not sure what it is to see, I used to run here, jump here, but in the day, most of the time, I was left alone because my siblings, my other cousins, they went off to school. My aunt at the time, she had to go to work, you know, so she can take care of us. So most of the time, I was always alone, and my childhood was just difficult. Yeah.
What did you do in those hours?
Sometimes a lot of mischief. I remember one time one of my aunt, she would have been my great aunt, my father's aunt. She died now. She had a tangerine tree. And, you know, not knowing the difference and all, I know persons will go and take a stick. So I went and I take a stick, you know, and trying to hit down tangerine, but instead of the tangerine, it was a nest of Jack Spanner, and you know, and that
Oh man.
I was stung up all over. And then I remember the first time I learned to cook, you know, what we'll call in a bun pan. It was when I was home alone, hungry. I know that you have to put the wood in the fireside. Kind of that time it was outside kitchen, light it and whatever. And I remember that time I cooked banana and some green peas, you know. So yeah, I used to be home maybe mischief, walking up and down and just like that.
What were some of the joys of your childhood?
Some of the joy of my childhood, what was the joy of my childhood? I wonder if I had any joy.
Oh.
Well, playing with my friends, and maybe when all of us is at home laughing and talking, you know, and so on, maybe.
No, you said that you had to go to the Lewis Pinnet home because Auntie was working and your other siblings were at school. But did you ever get any other type of support or encouragement from relatives and friends?
No. And I went to the Lewis Pinnet home because no one used to be at home with me. And my grandmother, which was my father's mother, she's now deceased too. She came to visit from England. So at those days, those times, I would have been with her. But when it was time for her to go back, she did not want to leave me alone. And then we have at those time where community health aid or community development officers, used to visit the village. And this lady by the name of Joy Frank, she came through to visit, and my grandmother met with her, talked with her, and share her concern about me being alone, visually impaired. She was scared that men could have done anything to me, and she was uncomfortable leaving me. So she asked about a home for children. And well, when Miss Frank got back to her, she told her about this home. And I thought my grandmother would have thought when it was a home for children, but it was the home for the older folks. So basically, that's how I end up at the Lewis Bonnet home. No relatives at all was coming to visit me. I had one friend, and I used to be around her, came to visit me one or two times, and her name is Jean Peters, and we are friend. Jean Kelly Buye Peters, we are friend, up to today. But at Louis Bonnet home, no, I had no family.
What happened at the Louis Bonnet home, Cheryl? You go to sleep, you wake up, you go to sleep, you wake up, all of the people are older than you, you can't see them. How did you function?
Well, at Louis Bonnet home again, being a child, that's what you know. I remember when I went into Louis Bonnet home, the first room I was placed in was the room with all the helpless women that couldn't help themselves. And I remember that first night, I was unable to sleep because of the smell that was coming from the room. So when the night nurse came in the early morning, she said, "Good morning." And she asked how I slept. And, I tell her this room is stink. That time, this is me. I thought my mind. She said, yeah, she could imagine. She don't understand why they choose this room for me. And she took me upstairs on the third floor and put me in a room with other women who could have moved about and stuff like that. So I was actually there, go downstairs because it was 3 floor. I used to go down on the last floor, go in the kitchen, mix with the cooks, the maid. And at one time too, one of the old lady got vexed with me because I was now given the assignment to wash the wares. So it came it looked as if I took her assignment away. But I mix, and young children, persons used to come to visit around in the neighborhood. So I had friends.
Okay.
And I used to go to church on a Sunday.
All right. Well, I note that you said children came to visit, so you made friends with those children. Explain to me how easy or difficult it is to interact with children who can see and who a few decades ago were not necessarily as sensitized as children are now, and therefore perhaps not as accommodating or tolerant.
And you know what, Cleo? I thought they were the best. Those who were not sensitized at the time, they were easily to communicate with and interact with. Than now where we have all the technologies and, other education and, internet and all of these things. It's harder now to interact for me with someone at my age or, younger that I want to interact with than in those days where you had no education, maybe are sensitized at all.
What do you think is the reason for those barriers now?
And I often wonder, what are the reasons for the barriers. I think persons has become very selfish. The world is now enlightened. So most people think about themselves. I'm not saying everybody now is like that, but people more think about them, what they want, what they can get. So they just can't be bothered with the few who are, vulnerable, who are pushed aside, and so on.
What type of employment have you been involved in throughout your life?
Throughout my life, I only know one employment. And well, as I went to school in Trinidad, taught Braille, learned to read it, write it. In 2002, 2003, forced through the youth empowerment, I went to special needs in Georgetown, where I was assigned the office attendant, like to answer the phone. Then few years after that, we had blind students start coming to the school, and I was asked to teach the Braille and IT to these visually impaired students. So that is between 2002, 2003 and to 2000, maybe 21.
So you've been a teacher, you're a career teacher.
Yes.
All right, that's interesting. Now, in my conversations with you prior to today, I realized that there are things that people, me, would take for granted. And we would just assume certain things, or that you are not capable of doing certain things, when nothing is furthest from the truth. I remember saying to you, well, I'll send you the questions and you could have a look at them and tell me what you, and no, I said, I'll send you the questions and you'll have a look and tell me what you think. And then I said, oh, shoot, no, that might not work because you won't be able to see. And you said, no, that's fine. You send them, I'll get them. And I thought, well, of course, there's technology for that. And then while I'm preparing for this interview, I'm scrolling through social media, and what pops up on my feed? Cheryl Adams in Cooking Without Looking. And I thought, well, what is this at all? What a coincidence this is, that this would pop up at a time when I'm doing some research. And I also took things like that for granted. And then in our most recent conversation, I realized that you are married, yes, and you have an adult daughter. But there are times for days where you would be at home alone, like most other people would find themselves at home alone. How do you navigate all of these things that people like me would just assume would be a challenge for you?
And here is where I would say to parents and loved ones with persons with disability, teach your loved ones with disability independent living skills. Because if you don't, you never know what life will throw at you and where it would leave them. So at Louis Ponette home, as I said, I started to learn how to wash wares and how I have to make up my bed. When I went to Trinidad at Santa Cruz, I was taught the same thing, how to cook, how to make up my bed, how to set a table, and how to serve. And there are other persons in my life who would have taken the time to show me and teach me how to do things and how to get around. So I function just as any normal woman. Majority, I do what a normal housewife would have done. I married in 95, yes, 95, April the 16th. And even though my husband's parents didn't want him to marry me because they just couldn't come to terms with him marrying a blind girl who is going to take care of the baby. But I was taught one time or twice how to hold my baby, to bathe her. And from that time, I bathe her until she can bathe herself. So I manage, I learn, and I execute because I have to do it.
You said we need to be able to teach our friends and relatives with disabilities independent living skills. How do we even start? Where do we start?
Well, you have to start somewhere. And the best time to start is when they are young. Okay. Because if you wait until they become teenage and adult, then they are going to become lazy, dependent, And they might even think you are being cruel and you don't want them to, you don't want to do it for them. Unfortunately, I was not taught that when I was much younger, because my aunt, she never teach me anything. So if I didn't move out from her, I would have been just like some of those persons out there who are not able to function. But because I moved from her, I had the opportunity to go out. I learned how to become independent. Let me tell you something, Cleo. Even that aunt, I remember I used to be home here cooking. And, sometimes when she come, I finish cooked and I would offer her food. And she always take it and carry it home. And, one day she came and I was in the kitchen and I was cooking. And she sat, she didn't help me do anything. She sat, she watched and see all that I was doing. So when I finished cooking now, I said to her, you want any of this food? And she said, yes, I'm going to eat it now. So while eating, she said, Cheryl, I'm going to make a confession. She said, many days I come and you will offer me food. And I used to scorn it because I used to say, what she know about cooking? She blind. How she know what she's doing? She said, but sitting here now, she said, you wouldn't know. Sitting here now and looking at you, you bring tears to my eyes and I know you know what you are doing. So I'm going to have the food now. And we sat and we eat, but I didn't feel offensive by her words because I know she didn't know better. And well, she couldn't teach me. She had about 13, 15 kids to look at. And then she don't know what to do. She don't know how to teach me because she has never been taught. But having the opportunity to go out, I count myself as blessed and one of those fortunate ones.
That brings me to a thought. You said she didn't teach you because she didn't know how. And I think some of us think that it is a challenge to teach someone with a disability if we were not formally taught. Is there something that we should know, something that we should do, or do we just jump right in and start teaching? How do we approach something like that?
Well, no, Cleo, no. There are a lot of information out there on the World Wide Web. So if you want to teach your loved ones something, how to dress, how to, maybe depends on the different able situation, how to cook or anything like that, you can now go to the World Wide Web and all of those informations are out there. But I guess in my auntie time is something that would have to come natural to her. And what I discover, even now, the information is out there. When I was at special needs, the parents would tell you, they're taking too long. I rather dress them for myself so we can get through on time. But you have to take time to teach them, even though you think in the morning is not the right time. Put aside a time for in the evening when they're at home, weekend when they're at home. But it's something that you must do. But parents out there, they are not blind. Some of them, majority of them have no form of disability, but they don't want to take the time. And if they don't want to take the time to teach them, is either the world teach them or those children, just left to suffer or die. If those are the words to use.
So your advice would be 1, to start early, 2, to be dedicated, 3, to do some research, and 4, have some patience.
Of course.
Have you ever had the occasion to be bitter or just to feel depressed because of your condition?
All of the time. All of the time. I have that. And especially when persons who you think they're your friends, close to you, when they hurt you, when they say things that, crush you. Yes, And there's a situation that I want to talk about. You know, we are now developing the Act for persons with disability. And we had some consultations, and on the 11th of March this year was the consultation for the educational sector. And because I am a teacher and a person with disability, the invitation was sent for me to attend. And there's a special part in the act that says teachers who are not qualified, have the experience, working, and they are being refused to be appointed. And when they reach on that, this specific lady or ladies, they jump up and they are they are supposed to be my colleague. We work together. And remember, I'm not in the room. They're not aware that I am online. And Cleo, the things that was said, I knew it was me they were referring to. And it hurt me that the person who was chairing did not stop this specific senior education officer who should have known better. And the things that she was saying, everybody sat and they took in everything. But when I burst out on Zoom and they realized, well, no, she's targeting a specific person, then is where everybody starts saying, well, it's wrong and we're not here for that and whatever. But I shouldn't even have to burst out, or lash out or say something for this person. Chairperson should have been able to stop this person and said, we are not here to deal with personal matters. This is with the disabled and is to give, persons with disability a better life. And, it hurt. It hurt me. The things that was said on the 11th of March hurt me, because the thing is, none of the things that were being said is true. They're all lies. But just because I have a disability, trying to rise above and doing what they should do and they're not doing it, they think, well, the only way we can get at her is to bring her down.
How do you deal with these situations?
Girl, I just want to thank God for good friends, because I would have talked. I want to thank God for my family who supported me. And I want to thank God for God, not that I'm leaving him all. And that I know how to pray. I listen to music and I concentrate on me. I concentrate on me.
You have spoken about aspects of discrimination and stigmatization where you are concerned, but what about as against your husband and your daughter?
I don't think. I can't recall if any discrimination has been really handed out, towards my husband. But I think some would have handed out to my daughter when she was much younger. I remember there was a specific student, at the school that she was going, the primary school. Well, she went to 2 primary schools, but the last primary school, and that would have been the Georgetown government. And the child, I don't know, for whatever reason, always used to pick on her. So when school over or finishes, she always have to be running to get to me. That time I was at Georgetown as well. And, she will come and complain about this specific boy. And I remember going to the principal and making complaint. And the things he said to me was really disgusting, and he didn't give me no kind of satisfaction. But I also tried to speak to the mother of the child, who started by telling me her child was at the school first. But I let her know the school doesn't belong to her, nor it doesn't belong to her child. And when I finished with her, well, I guess she talked to her son, because my daughter never really complained of him, harassing her, any other students getting at her.
So in all of this, Cheryl, in all of the instances that you have shared with us, if you didn't advocate for yourself, these issues would never have been resolved.
Never. Never.
Wow. There is so much that needs to be done to bring awareness to just, thinking of people with disabilities as people, just people, ordinary people, and for us to get rid of all of this discrimination. And whereas Life No Sugar Added is intended to deal with things like this, we're only like one grain of sand on a beach. There's so much more that needs to be done, so many more people who need to become involved. And unfortunately, for people like you and people like Desiree, your work will never be over.
It will never.
No.
It would not finish.
You are, sorry, go ahead.
In this area, there are a lot of work that need to be done. And what concerns me is that the persons with the qualifications, like the degrees and the doctorate, not that I'm beating up on anyone, and the specialists, they are the one that is sitting back, and they are the one that is not doing anything. They're not doing anything at all. And you who don't have any degree and masters and all that go within the qualification, you are the one that is trying. You are the one that is saying, hey, we are here. And yet you are the one that they are trying to walk on and champion. And it's very sad.
Cheryl, I'm talking to you and you sound very accomplished and you sound very confident, and you are certainly a very assertive woman. Have you ever experienced low self-esteem?
Yes. Even even when I heard the things that was spoke against me on March 11, and my husband, was a bit unfaithful in 2013, and times like those, yes, my self-esteem was questioned, but being me, I don't focus on the negative for too long. I try not to. So I always try my best to raise my standard. And praying is something I do a lot. I pray, and if I don't pray a long prayer, if I feel I'm beginning to get depressed, maybe feeling low, I start saying, well, God, you will have to help me here. If nobody else can't, then you will have to do it. So of course, but why sit down and dwell on the negative when there are work to be done? And the thing about it's clear, a lot of people look to me. A lot of people call me, and I have to be praying for them, ministering with them. So how can I spend time being low?
Yeah.
When other persons out there, they need me.
You have a job to do, you have a purpose to fulfill.
Yes. So I don't spend time on the negative. I try not to.
Cheryl, they say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. What do you consider to be beautiful?
I always say to my daughter, and persons will say, Miss Adams, I know you can't see, but you have a beautiful daughter. And I know she's beautiful. But I say to my daughter, girl, beauty is not your body and your face. Those things, the time will come when they would, what is the word?
Fade.
Fade. I said, but beauty, real beauty, comes from the inside and what comes out of you. Yes. So beauty for me is who you are, what you portray, and what comes out from your heart. So beauty is from the heart.
That's deep. What considerations did you have, Cheryl, when deciding to get married and to have a family? You married a sighted man, so it's not to say that you are, on even keel with your partner. There are stark differences from the beginning. What were your considerations?
I always wanted somebody who will befriend me, somebody who would, show interest, somebody who don't show as if they don't want to be with me and stuff like that. And the thing is, I had a situation and I wanted to get married just for the sake of that situation. I had no family, you have to say, and I didn't want any advantage to be taken of me, as if it seemed as if, that would have happened or was about to happen. So, I started to pray and, ask the Lord. I said, God, the only how I can really, get out of this situation. Not that I was doing anything, but I said, you have to give me a husband. I want somebody who would love me, somebody who would take care of me, and be there for me. And that year, Cleo, I had 2 to choose from.
Look at you.
Yeah, I had 2. And my husband, the one that I presently married, he was the best out of the 2. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And we met right here. He
At
came
your home?
Yeah, he came with a friend to do some plumbing work, and we start talking. We were going to the same church. When church over, he would make sure he come and escort me outside and open the door, put me in the transportation, When I come, she will make sure that he's there on time, escort me in church, So what to say, he proved himself, right?
Yes, indeed.
But I think somewhere along the line, he was carried away by friends, Persons would always want to say, oh, why you have to marry a blind woman? And I think somewhere along the line, he would have got carried away. But I just want to say thank God. I think we are together. He never left. We are together. We always, share good time. There are good times and bad times.
And I suppose most people would, if they were to be honest, would say the same thing. Yes. What are the challenges of being visually impaired with a family?
The challenges is that sometimes you are not, I don't want to say not able to function. I don't want to say that. But, sometimes you wish you can do more. Like when they are looking at television, you wish you can sit and look at the movie with them. You can sit and read and, things like those. I taught my daughter. I taught her. And I remember her telling her daddy one day, Daddy, since I am 9 years old, my mom is lazy. And even now, when he wants to kick off on me, he would use that. But I used to lay out the clothes just as how she has to put them on. And I said to her, just as how you see the clothes, that is how you have to put them on. And my daughter dressed herself. The only thing I had problem with was when she has to put on her shoe. Like she used to put them on left and right. We would say left and right. But there's this special lady, and I am wondering if she used to just walk down the road every morning just to look at my daughter. But every morning, she was able to call her by her name and say, change your shoe. their own wrong. And one day I line up her slippers and I said, you see how these slippers lined up? That is how you have to put on your shoe. And from that day to now, no one have to tell her her shoes is on wrong. So is us. I know I am visually impaired and I know I have to teach my daughter. So I develop ways to help her, to teach her. But I didn't really have, besides not being able to like maybe watch a movie or what are the challenges? Is there any? I don't even know. Because I just function. I just function. I know when they were not wrong, I have to get up. I have to cook. I have to make sure I have the food on the table for when my husband and my daughter come, when she comes from school and he comes from work. The challenge, I don't know.
You function just like any other housewife.
I function as any housewife.
And you're not a housewife. You're just a regular professional who comes home and does some domestic duties.
Well, before, because remember I married 95 and it's in 2002 around I started to go out.
Okay.
But I think the challenge maybe just the watching, because I don't like television, and I guess it's because I'm not seeing what is on the television. But now I listen to what we call descriptive movies, because we have audio descriptive movies now. So if I want to listen to a specific movie, once it's descriptive, then I can listen. But in those days there wasn't any descriptive movies like that.
Yes.
So the watching of the television, my husband, I now remember at the time he used to play football, and not being able to go and look at him playing on the field, and things like those would have been a little challenging and make me feel sad. But he always assured me that it's okay. He always assured me that it's okay.
He sounds like a sweet soul.
I will be honest with you. He's good. He's good. I mean, as I said, he follow friends. He fall down, but I think he's getting up back.
Yeah. That's nice to hear. How do you picture things in your mind?
Well, you have to have like maybe imagination. Most person would say they like to see me in red. Red makes me look real good. And so I always say I want a red house. When I get my own house, I'm going to paint it in red, all red. And my sister, and so now, because my sister and I have a good relationship, we talk, and she would say, you don't even know what red would look like. You can't paint your whole house in red. But because persons like to see me in red, in my mind, red is beautiful. So I picture things like those, looking beautiful and so on.
Okay. You are a very independent woman. You're a very capable woman. And there are some people who are insensitive, but there are some people who are sensitive to a fault and could perhaps go overboard and create awkward situations in their desire to try and help you. How do you deal with those kinds of situations?
Some of them I accept and I let it go by. But if it is over, what we'll say bearing, then I try to talk to the person and show them how they can assist, or how they would not be able to go over and above. Some persons, some situation, you just have to let them go by. And some, then you will have to deal with.
I know you're a very outspoken person. So how do you deal with sensitive issues that require tact?
I try now that I'm getting older, I allow the situation to cool down. And when it's cooled down, you think it is forgotten, then I talk about it. First, when I was young, I would have bloated it out. No, I don't. I try my best. Let's say my husband and I have a misunderstanding. Long ago, when I was younger, I would have just let him have it. Now I wait until we are talking. We are in a, we are having a conversation. And then I bring up the situation and talk about it. So I don't blow out like how I used to blow out before. Long time persons used to say that I am quick. I am still quick because there are some that need to deal with immediately. And there are some you just have to wait and let it simmer, if that is a word, and then you deal with it.
I want to come back to voice of the disabled. You are blind, that's your only disability. But voice of the disabled represents all of the different demographics, if I can use that term, of disability. Why is it such an overarching organization and not necessarily confined to assisting people who are visually impaired?
And that's my thing. Every person with a disability need a representation. So I don't like the organizations that just deal with a specific disability. It seemed to me as if you are biased. All persons living with disability need a voice. So I didn't name it Voice of the Disabled, Cleo. I was at school in my classroom where I was pushed upstairs in a little room all by myself. Discrimination again. Shut her away. She wouldn't hear what is happening and what is being done to the students because she talks too much. And while I was up there, I just heard Voice of the Disabled.
Okay.
So I did not name it Voice of the Disabled. The name was given to me at a time when I was shut off. I have to say shut off.
And realizing that people like you and other people need to have representation.
Yeah, need a voice.
What sort of services do you offer?
We are now at Santos C, and we are now at what we'll refer to as the old community center. I said that so persons will know where we are. That was a dilapidated building. We were able to have donors like from Australia, direct aid. We had some money from them, so we now developed the center. I am there from Monday to Friday. We are still working on developing the center and putting things in place, but we have been offering scrap mat making on a Wednesday. And recently we start the CCSLC class on a Thursday.
What is CCSLC?
CCSLC, that is the Caribbean Secondary School exam that is being offered by CXC, is for students maybe reach Form 3 or 4 and drop out of school, were not able to continue, and persons like us. And Desiree Richards, she is the Deputy Director for Adult Continuing of Education at the Ministry of Education. She came to visit and she suggested that is one of the programs we should tap into. And I ran with it. So we now have that. We have about 9 persons with disability doing that. And we have 3 persons from the community coming to join us that are not disabled.
Well done.
I offer also information technology on a Thursdays for the visually impaired. We have in mind to do Braille. We have in mind to do home ec and craft. And we want to do a small scale farming in our backyard, kitchen garden. And we have a lot of plans, but we are just going step by step.
There are people in our community who are retired or who have access to certain resources. How can we help your organization?
You can help us by coming to visit, volunteer your services, donate whatever you have to donate. Sometimes when we talk about donation, first thing come to our mind is money. And yes, we need the money, but there are persons out there, as you said, a retired counselor. One of my service I want to offer is counseling. Persons with disability are very depressed and they need that service. So you out there, you're a counselor, you can come in, once a week, twice a week, and we would appreciate it. Whatever you have to offer, you contact Voice of the Disabled and we see how we can work together. I've been partnering a lot this week. I went to the Commonwealth Network, the Commonwealth Women Network workshop last Tuesday. I was at the UN on Monday at the Sunset Shore Hotel. And I went back to one at Marian House today, where we were dealing with building the capacity for women and girls, So what you can offer is accepted. Our challenge, the challenge we are facing, one of the challenges I'm facing is transportation. There are persons living with disability wants to come out to the center, wants to participate in the programs, but we don't have a transportation of our own. And I put through a project for that, and I'm really trusting and hoping that donor will consider and help us with that transportation. So, so moving about, getting from point A to point B will become a little more easier and accessible for us.
What are some of the success stories so far from Voice of the Disabled?
Voice of the Disabled has a lot of successful story. And if I have to go back, I'll tell you when we started at the Culinary Resource Center, we started to have our meeting every second Saturday. And one Saturday we turn up, we were told that we cannot go into the building because the building need to repair. And that had become a downcast for us. We went to Miss Gale's preschool. She allowed us to use the preschool, but because we were all adult, the chairs were falling apart. Then we have to leave there, go back to the center. And then we, could have only sat in the veranda to have meeting. We were not allowed to go to the building. And hence 2018, November, I heard a voice saying, ears haven't heard, eyes haven't seen. For it have not yet been revealed, unto man the things that God have in store. I'm just paraphrasing. And that very year, November, we were introduced to the old community center at St. Lucie. We were able to have Braxa starting some work. They didn't complete it. Then we were able to get them again to start where they completed the roof in 2020. And 2021, with the help of Mr. Alan Williams, our project coordinator, held at the New Grounds SDA Church. We were able to receive our first donation from USAID, where we have our center. We were able to tiles, change windows, have a beautiful kitchen. Everybody come, they love our kitchen, have a lovely hall. And we have our own center. It has been leased by the government to us. And so I count that a success. From
Definitely.
nothing to something.
Exactly. You have a
And
home.
we have a home. We
Yes.
have a home. And we continue to progress. And it's all with God's help and God's blessings. And, you know, he continued to establish us regionally, internationally. You said you look at Cooking Without Looking, and I was there. And it was since last year I was to do that program, but, you know, I didn't want to do it. I keep pushing it off until, you know, the producer call and beg, and then, you know, I did it. I did it.
May I ask why you were reluctant? It doesn't sound like you.
I don't know why I was reluctant, but I was just reluctant. Maybe the timing wasn't right.
I understand.
Maybe the timing wasn't right.
Cheryl, what would you like to see for the disabled in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
I want to see we are taken from the marginalized position. We are being included, and it must be inclusive St. Vincent for everyone. And I don't want to hear, oh, we are inclusive. No, because we are not. I want to see inclusion. I want to see persons with disability become employed, trained, skilled, given the chance to live as any normal citizen in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And believe you me, that is what I am working towards. And I know it's not easy, but I know we would get there. Determination will take us right there.
Definitely. You said you would like to see employment, apart from inclusion and the end to the discrimination and stigmatization, you'd like to see employment. What sorts of jobs would people with disabilities most find themselves taking up?
I know we have a young lady who would have gone to UWI, I think in Trinidad, and have her degree. And sad to say she's not been given the opportunity to work at her field. She's at another location that she didn't bargain for. But we don't have much people here, and myself, you know, who are in the teaching world. And I know that Mr. Chambers and others at the National Society Orphan for the Blind doing their care training and their map making and stuff like that. But we need to see persons with disability coming out from their homes. There's an act that is somewhere in the ministry that should be going to cabinet, that should be passed, that would allow us to have our voice. And I hope that it don't just sit where it is, but very soon we would hear of it, and it would it will come into act, you know, it would be come into play. So persons with disability would be given their rightful place in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because if you ask me, if we have our rightful place right now in society in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I'll say no. No, we don't.
Do you think
think it's easy, Cleo, to be teaching for about 20 years? And because you don't have a degree, because you don't have a doctorate, because you don't have a master, you have experience, you know what you are doing. I remember one year when I did the exam paper for my students, that very said person who was pulling me down in the conference room, she came to me and she said, you know, Miss Adams, your test is the best that I look at so far. And that is the test for my students, Braille and information technology. And I was forced to teach other subjects that I was not versed in or trained to do, but I did my best. And now you can't even be given an appointment because you don't, they see you as someone that is not qualified.
Yes.
All these things hurt.
Demotivating, yes. Yeah.
Motivating, but I wouldn't allow it to demotivate me.
Would you say that one disability is more challenging than the other?
Yes, it is. Those of us who are just visually impaired are blind, but our brain is intact. We give God thanks. But what about the mentally challenged? And even, the hearing impaired, as one of the thing I raised at the conference for the UN Women is that the police officers in the school training should be taught sign language, because our hearing impaired are suffering when they go to the court. Their cases are being thrown out because no one is there to sign. Yes, and so we have the mentally retarded, we have the some who are physically challenged. Yes, some disabilities, is harder than some.
Yeah. And you represent
more difficult.
At the Voice of the Disabled. How many people do you represent?
Well, we have about 60 members, but we have both disabled and able-bodied persons as members.
How many children?
Well, let me see, about 6 children.
Okay.
I try not to, because there's a school for children with special needs. I more cater for now for the adults, because it's the adult who doesn't really have a home or somewhere to go, an institution. Persons are saying I should start a school. I am not sure I want to get into a school. I like the idea of Voice of the Disabled. I like this idea of the center where persons with disability can feel at home, get a hot meal, interact, and stuff like that.
What is the vision for Voice of the Disabled?
My vision, our vision, what we are doing, we are advocating. We are advocating. We are advocating for persons with disability. We pledge to be educating the society, and I know we are not doing a lot of that yet. We want to bring self-awareness to the society about persons with disability. And there's a scripture verse in Proverbs. It says, I think it's Proverbs 16, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. That's what we have on our banner. So the reason why persons with disabilities are really perishing is because there is no vision. So our vision is to advocate on behalf of persons with disability. To see, as I said already, we're given our rightful place here in St.Vincent and the Grenadines.
And Sweet Radio SVG stands ready to assist wherever we can in that regard, especially on your journey of awareness. So please, if there's anything that we can do to assist, just don't hesitate, let us know as soon as possible.
And I will.
Cheryl, you shared so much with us, and I thank you for your candor and for your willingness to discuss this situation with us. I'd like to ask you, if you may, what would you like to see if you had the opportunity to have your vision restored? What is it that you would most want to lay your eyes on?
My beautiful daughter.
Oh.
And my husband. I think I would like to see them first.
Oh.
Yes.
That is really heartwarming.
Yes, I would like to see them first.
Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me on Life No Sugar Added. You have certainly, brought clarity to an issue that is so shrouded and perhaps a little blurred in the minds of those of us who are differently abled to you and some of your colleagues. This is Life No Sugar Added, and certainly your story is a bittersweet story because despite your disability, you have still been able to rise above it and accomplish yourself and stand shoulder to shoulder with everyone else in this society. We have a saying as we wrap up each of these programs, Ubuntu, and it means I am because you are. I am now far more enlightened because you have been so willing to come and share with me. Cheryl, Ubuntu.
Amen. Thank you.
They can't break me down.